There's a sense that something has already changed and must change even more. This is an appointed hour. This is an appointed moment. The world there are stress fractures everywhere. There are pressure points everywhere. The nations are in upheaval. It's a multipolar world of so much political pressure, economic pressure, moral, spiritual, military, academic pressure. The family is under the gun. Nations are in upheaval. And it is time in this great darkness for a light to rise upon the people of God like never before. Where sin has abounded, God has tsunami waves of grace prepared in advance to wash across the nations with light and hope. But it doesn't just happen out of a sovereign commitment to a predetermined outcome. It happens out of his sovereign decision to empower people to create that predetermined outcome. And this is our great privilege. COVID hit in 2020, and the church, as usual, was moving forward with a sense of energy around different initiatives that were good, that were noble in spirit, that were well-intended, but that weren't significantly different than anything we've done for decades. And for maybe about 50 years, we have had an increasing degree of sophistication in our church services. We do lights better, music better. We do a lot of things better and more impressively and with less effect. In the same amount of time that our churches have grown in numbers and grown in stature and impressiveness, we've diminished in influence. Culture is absolutely decayed. Civilization is collapsing under our watch while we have operated in that modicum of success with that model of ministry. And if you go back hundreds of years, the church service is largely unchanged. We have a certain expectation around a Sunday morning. All our eggs are in that basket. A church mindset is primarily a gathering mindset. It is about getting as many people in the room to hear a message. There's worship, there's a message, there's a tithe, and there's a potluck after with a few announcements. And we have reduced Jesus' startling declaration in Matthew 16, "Upon this rock I will build a ruling council," an Ekklesia. We basically made that to Jesus saying, "Upon this rock, I'm going to help you build a really good Sunday service." I'm not trying to mock. I'm actually quite serious. We have so diluted and diminished what Jesus is building and wants to build to churchianity and to a meaningful Sunday service that we constantly have to invest more and more innovation into those 2 magic hours to achieve any kind of impact. Well, 2020 comes along and shuts the earth down for 3 years, and the governments of the earth say, you can't have your 2 hours on Sunday. And all across the earth, most churches complied, most churches. And all across the earth, there was a fracturing of the vision and potential and impact of the church. The emperor was revealed to have no clothes. And that's not an indictment. I'm not trying to speak condemningly, because for decades prior, the generations prior, our fathers were faithful to the revelation they had, and the church was salt and light in, at least in a Western context, in a civilization that was largely molded around a Judeo-Christian ethic, and so it worked. It was basically just fertilizing something that was already growing and thriving. But we live in a postmodern, post-Christian, wartime culture, not a modernized, Christianized, peacetime culture. The rules have changed, and COVID exposed that those things don't work, and those 2 magic hours can be taken away like that. 168 hours in the week. And those are all meant for kingdom influence. But the church was left without anything to do. Buildings closed. Thousands of churches and thousands of pastors in the United States alone closed over those 3 years. discouraged, dejected, disillusioned, and they aren't returning to ministry, and those churches aren't opening. Does that mean Jesus isn't building the church anymore? Or does it mean he's building the Ekklesia, and that requires a sea change, a paradigm shift to a new wineskin, a new model, and new tools and tactics, new leaders, new ways, new outcomes, new focuses. This is a time of renewal and expansion like never before. What God is doing around the earth is stunning and glorious, but it's a time of peril. We are in an era of great risk and the need for great transformation. Our old models aren't working. The old truth is the same as ever. Truth hasn't changed, but some of our mindsets, some of the churchianity and the celebrity culture and the glorification of gifts over character, and really a missing of the true mission and function of the Ekklesia. That root word that we have translated as church, but is far more robust, far more explosive, far more dynamic and important when Jesus said, "Upon this rock I will build my Ekklesia." I'll share in another video. In 2010, I had a watershed moment where the Lord opened up Matthew 16 and showed me revelation about the true meaning of the Ekklesia I had never heard or seen, preached or taught by anyone else. It was fresh, direct revelation out of the Word from heaven, and it has put in motion a global movement that has been slowly boiling and growing and is now reaching a critical mass moment that demands key leaders be mobilized and trained, because we're about to have an Ekklesia explosion that the world has never seen.